Great, thanks for coming, everybody. My name's Steve Kretschmann, part of the Value Consulting Group at Apttus, and I've got the pleasure of introducing Deb Calvert, a veteran of Accelerate, 2 or 3 years now in a row. And what I want to point out before I really make the formal introduction is, Apttus is the quote-to-cash leader in the space, right? We've got the deepest pool of thought leaders inside the company, but it goes beyond that. It's also about the ecosystem that we promote, that we work with actively with our implementation partners, with thought leaders outside of Apttus. And I think Deb is a really shining example of that thought leadership that we interface with, that we work with on a regular basis. So Deb is the president of People First Productivity Solutions, really an interesting organization. She leads the Stop Selling and Start Leading movement and has founded the Sales Expert Channel. And Deb can give you a lot more information on those channels, on those resources afterwards, because they're really, really interesting concepts. If you heard from Guru Ganesh earlier in the day, right, this is another way of looking at the processes and optimizing those and driving for greater effectiveness in your organizations, and in a lot of ways better than some of the things that you heard earlier in the day. She is not only an author, but a best-selling author of Discover Questions Get You Connected. This book has recently been named by HubSpot as one of the 20 most highly rated sales books of all times, and I think that comes from some Amazon data and what have you. So it's a really impressive resume, really impressive accomplishments, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Deb. Warm welcome, please, Deb Calvert.
Thanks. Keep them out, because this doesn't happen nearly often enough, but Mike and Steven and Adam and Aaron and Mark and Patrick in the back there, they have just been working it for 3 days, so how about a hand for all of them? They make things happen. Well, here's a fun fact. The phrase, if you've ever heard the phrase, straight from the horse's mouth, what that has to do with is actually in horse racing, at the moment when you're about to place your bet, there are 2 things you can do if you want to get some great information about the vitality of the horse that you're about to lay your money on. You can talk to the jockey, you can talk to the trainer, you can talk to the other people in the stable, and that's pretty good information, right? They're right there in the thick of things. Or you can take it up a notch. You can go straight to the authority in this case being the horse. And the reason the phrase straight from the horse's mouth came about is that apparently, now I don't know horses well at all, but some of you will, apparently whatever's going on inside a horse's mouth is pretty meaningful. The color, the way the teeth look, what they just ate, how the breath smells. So straight from the horse's mouth. And that's what we're about to do, to hear directly from B2B buyers. We conducted research with over 530 B2B buyers to get to where we are today. And that's what I do. I connect people, buyers and sellers and others, by doing research. My first book, which Stephen mentioned, is all about research with buyers. It took 20 years of research. What I'm about to talk to you about is going a lot faster thanks to the support of Santa Clara University and Wiley Publishing and some other partners. My company, People First Productivity Solutions, is all about connections, buyers to sellers, leaders to constituent groups, team members to each other. And the reason that we need to talk about this whole idea of connecting sellers with buyers is this. Things have changed. Everything has changed. Buyers are in control. And by the way, no matter what your function is, one of the very interesting discoveries from our research is that buyers view all of you as sellers. It's not just the person with the sales or account word in their title. Everyone across the organization, according to buyers, needs to be thinking of them in a relationship that's a little different from what it used to be. So stay tuned for that. Buyers are in charge. And because buyers are in charge, they are doing some very interesting things that your organization is probably experiencing. One of the things they're doing is working all by themselves, without you, without your seller, maybe even without very much on your website. They're working by themselves to get 67% of the way through their own buying process before they take time to talk with somebody in your sales organization. 67%. And not only that, but because they're waiting so long and they're not using the information that could be provided to them, only 19% of buyers rate time with a seller as valuable. 81% say the time spent with a seller is something less than valuable. Many say it's flat out a waste of time. So 67%, you know what that means. It means that they are already aware of your product and all the products like it. And they're interested, they've begun to have some desire for the product, but by the time they interface with the seller, what do they want to talk about? One thing and one thing only. Yep, they want to talk about the price. They have commoditized your product without ever fully understanding it. They're coming in to talk about price. You and your seller are coming in to talk about qualifying them, giving them a demo, helping to understand their needs so you can make a better connection, and they're not having it. They want to talk about price, and there are huge implications because of that. We have a choice, though. We have something we can do differently. Michael Dart, economist and working in the retail space primarily, says that you can keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, trying to get there first, faster, more often ahead of your equally compelling competitors. You can keep doing that. You know what that looks like. Or you can do something that buyers would like to see us doing more often. You can create for them an awesome connecting experience. Now, this research that I'm about to tell you about, we've got a very clear picture now about what an awesome connecting experience looks like for a B2B buyer. And it comes from the seller and from everybody else in your organization too, at every touch point in the experience. So here's what we did to try to understand this. I've got to walk you through the research, and I'm going to ask you to participate in the research, so you'll want to get your phones out. We'll be doing a poll here in just a moment using SMS texting. But here are the questions we asked buyers, different from the one I'm about to ask you. First, we asked buyers of 30 behaviors. We gave them a choice of 30 behaviors that are more typically used in the leadership space. We asked them to tell us for each one of those what the current level of frequency is. What are they seeing from the salespeople they are already choosing to do business with? We have a baseline. Then we asked them, what would that ideal frequency be? How often would you like to see each one of these 30 behaviors from the salespeople that you're doing business with? And get this, because it never happens, we had a 100% rate. 530 B2B buyers all said about every one of those 30 behaviors that the ideal frequency is higher than the frequency they're already seeing in the sellers they choose to do business with. So we think, okay, maybe we're on to something. Then we asked them to do something else. We asked them, of these behaviors, how would they affect you in terms of your likelihood of choosing to meet with a seller who exhibited this behavior more frequently? And again, all 30 behaviors, every one of them, all by itself, would cause a buyer to be more likely to take a meeting with that seller who demonstrated the behavior more frequently. And then the money question. How likely would you be to buy from a seller who exhibited this behavior? And once again, all 30 behaviors, every single one of them, would cause a buyer to be more likely to buy from that seller. So this is pretty good stuff. Now, we also asked them to rank order these behaviors, and they were interviewed. They gave us comments. We have great context behind how they interpret and what they want to do and what they would like to see from these 30 behaviors. With me so far? Okay, here comes your part. We grouped these so that it was no longer having to be 30 behaviors. We grouped them the very same way that they are grouped in the body of work that we were working with, the Leadership Challenge. Some of you may be familiar with it. It is the best known body of work. It goes back over 30 years, global, evidence-based model or framework for leadership. They take those same 30 behaviors and they group them, thank goodness, into just 5 practices of exemplary leadership. So I'm going to describe these 5 practices for you, and then I'm going to ask you to vote on which one do you think these B2B buyers put it at number 1. Now remember, all of these, all 30 behaviors, 6 in each of the practices, all of them are favorable. Now we're just looking to which one is the most favorable. Okay, so number 1 is to model the way. What it means to model the way, do we not come up? there we go. What it means to model the way is that you know your values. You know what they are, you find your own voice, and then your actions demonstrate your values. They're in alignment. I could tell by watching you what it is that you value. It would come through loud and clear. Number 2 is to inspire a shared vision. Inspiring a shared vision means, well, first, that you have a vision. I've got this picture of the future. And then secondly, since it's a shared vision, it also means that I've enlisted the buyer in the vision. The buyer can see themselves and their long-term interests in that vision as well. Number 3 is to challenge the process. Challenging the process is experimenting, taking risks, innovating, asking the hard questions that would challenge the buyer and would challenge you inside your own organization as well. Okay, 2 more. Enable others to act. I am fostering a spirit of cooperation. If I'm enabling others to act, I am giving them some self-determination, some confidence in the work they do, and I'm showing that I trust them. Okay? And finally, encouraging the heart. This is the emotional piece. To encourage the heart means to create a spirit of community, to praise and recognize people for the work that they're doing. Okay, so those are the 5. Now, your challenge is going to be to pick which one out of the 5. Model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, or encourage the heart. Which one do you think the B2B buyers in our survey put number 1, all of them being important, but which one was most important? We're going to put up a poll there in the back so that you can vote. You'll see, so there you go. So you see the number that you need to text into. As you are beginning to get set up for the poll, I'm going to remind you about what each of these mean. Model the way is to find your voice, to know your values, and to align your actions with your values. That's model the way. If you choose that one, you'll vote A. To inspire a shared vision is to have a vision of the future, to paint that big picture of the future, and then to enlist your buyers so they see their own long-term interest in that. Challenge the process. That's the one that's about innovating, experimenting, taking risks, asking some tough questions. To enable others to act is to give them a sense of self-determination and confidence, to show you trust them, and to collaborate and cooperate with others. And the last one, if you're voting for E, it's encourage the heart, and that's about spirit of community, praise, and recognition. So go ahead and take your best guess. We're going to see how your responses line up with the responses of the buyers in this study and with the sellers that we've been surveying since then. Make your best guess. We all know it's just a guess at this point, so don't worry about right or wrong. It's just for fun. The results are coming up live, so as soon as you have had a chance to vote, go ahead and see how you compare to others in the room. And then I'll show you how you compare to B2B buyers in our survey. When you're done voting, go ahead and maybe turn your phone over so I'll know who's still voting and who needs more time. Which one did B2B buyers think was top? I'm going to call time in about 3, 2, 1. There are your results. We didn't get any from Model the Way. Normally it's a spread across all of them. Let me tell you what happens usually when I ask people who work outside of the buying function. So first of all, any of you who your primary role is to buy in the B2B space? Shoot, we would have probably put you on the spot to see if your guess was closer to the ones in our study. But here's what usually happens. Those who don't buy typically do what you just did. They put inspire a shared vision and challenge the process at the top because those are the 2 that sound most like the world of selling. Well, let's see what buyers did. You're very typical in your results. Let's see what buyers actually said. Buyers in this study, we'll have to take it off poll. There we go. Buyers in this study, got ahead of myself there, put this one first by a lot. So remember, they're all important, but number 1 way up here was enable others to act. 2 and 3 were a little further down the list. 4 and 5 were way down. It was very clear how buyers were looking at this. But for them, enabling others to act was far and away the number 1. I'm going to show you those behaviors in just a moment and tell you some of the context behind why they chose this. Number 2 for buyers was this one, model the way, that the seller represents their values in their actions. That's the one that nobody here happened to pick. Number 3 for buyers, encourage the heart. This surprises people, right? Encourage the heart, literally meaning pouring courage into not the brain, not the body, but the heart, the emotional piece. And there was only one thing in the entire study, only one thing where we saw a variation when it came to demographic sorts. We looked at different sizes of companies, different buying roles, different complexity of the sale, different sectors, different age groups, and this is the one and only distinction between all the groups, and that is that buyers under age 30 put encourage the heart as number 2, whereas everyone else put model the way ahead of encourage the heart. So just to note, as you're thinking about your millennial buyers, something to even turn up a little more volume on. Number 4, challenge the process. And number 5, what you put up there at the top, inspire a shared vision. Inspire a shared vision sounds most like the work of selling. So of course we think buyers are going to want to see that behavior. Turns out they're a little fatigued on this behavior. So let me break it down for you. Here are the behaviors, 6 under each one of the 5 practices that we chose. And you'll notice that number 1, above and beyond everything else, the number 1 behavior for buyers is that the seller answers their questions completely and gives them information in a way that's useful, timely, and relevant. You can imagine, based on what I said earlier, with the buyer working 67% of the way through their buying process, you can imagine what the comments were all about. They were about sellers, sales organizations, in fact, organizations overall, not answering their question about price. Not answering their question about price when they wanted to have that question answered. But in sales, we say, don't do it, don't give the price until you've established the value, and we're taught to dodge and deflect that question. And buyers are largely frustrated by our behaviors. So this is what they would like first and foremost. Within this same practice, you also see that they want to have a two-way dialogue, and that includes the needs assessment process for those who are in selling. The needs assessment process is typically right now diagnostic. I ask you a question, you give me an answer, I make a prescription. Buyers would like to see it instead be dialogic. They'd like to see a dialogic, two-way conversation where they get to have some additional opportunity to express what they're looking for and what they need, as opposed to it being more like the doctor's office diagnosis. I call what buyers are looking for something that's far more participative than what we're giving them now. That's what buyers have told us. They have said that they want to be participants in creating what they want. Buyers don't want it to be that you took some information, you went and did something behind the curtain, and then voila, you had the solution for them. They want to co-create the insights. They want to be a part of making things happen. I call it the Chipotle effect because it's just like going down the burrito bar at Chipotle. When you ask for, a little more beans and not quite so much guacamole, it's whatever you want in that moment. That's what makes it right for you, and that's what makes it an experience for you. We've got to be able to give that to our buyers, whether it's through your service, your delivery, your quality control, the product itself. Somehow they need more voice in it because we're trying to give them, remember, an awesome connecting experience. And that experience is one that gets infused with meaning that's personally relevant to them. We don't do that if we go by the book, through the process, the way it's in the playbook. Well, let's buzz through the others here. So this is enable others to act. Number 1, remember number 2 and 3, as I said, they fell down a little bit because enable others to act was so important to buyers. But in the model the way, there was one behavior that really stands out. It's the second highest rated behavior out of all 30, and it's simple. It's that buyers want the people who they're working with in your organization to honor the commitments and promises that they make. And we all know that, except buyers think we don't know it. And we had twice the number of comments, twice the number of pages, long comments and stories, as well as number of comments about this one behavior. Buyers are extremely frustrated when you don't do WYSIWYD. They just want this simple thing from us. They want us to do WYSIWYD. It stands for do what you say you will do. Simple. Do what you say you will do. And you'll notice that the word do is in there twice. The word say is in there once. The reason that buyers don't care so much about inspiring a shared vision, they don't care to be inspired by you, is because they've been burned. They've been inspired and excited by that picture of the future that you paint, but then you don't come through. The do WYSIWYD isn't there, and they're looking for it. Well, let's talk about encouraging the heart. This one stumps a lot of salespeople and a lot of others in organizations. They ask me, what does that even look like? What does that mean? Because the assumption is that the end of the sale, the end of the transaction, the end of the service call, we say thank you and we're courteous and polite, but buyers are looking for more. If this is to be an awesome connecting experience, they're looking for more all the way through the process. First and foremost, they're looking for you to demonstrate confidence in their abilities. They want to know that what they say was respected and dignified, that it was heard, that there was two-way dialogue all the way around it. Those are all enabling others to act behaviors. And then they also want to know that you believe in what they said. They want some encouragement around what they already thought and believed, which is sort of tricky because you're bringing something new and you want to convince them of something different that you can bring to them. So it's a delicate balance. But in the comments, what buyers said is that they want you to bring something new and to align it with and to understand what they've already done. This is especially true anytime we're looking for internal influencers. They need lots of encouragement to go to the other decision makers and the people with the checkbook and those inside the organization who they have to convince. We've got to show them lots of confidence in their abilities to do that. This is how one buyer described it. This is a quote directly out of the survey. This buyer says a few things that are really interesting, and I like this one best of all. The link between, if you make me feel confident, I think we have a great relationship. And not only do I think we have a great relationship, but because you showed confidence in me, it proves you have confidence in you and your product and your company. So it's reciprocal. Your confidence in me comes across to me as confidence in yourself too. This is some heady stuff, so I'll be in the next room, and I've got some books for those who want to visit with me too. But let me just go ahead and take you to the last two, the two that are less important to buyers but still do matter. Buyers are looking for us to challenge the process, and specifically, they want sellers to keep them abreast of new ways to improve. They want sellers to help them innovate, to give them great ideas, and to challenge them when they are too mired to the status quo. So that's good news. That's our opportunity, and one way we can use this particular practice. Last but not least is going to be our Inspire a Shared Vision. It's not represented in this quote, which is about challenging, but you'll notice in this quote that everything else is woven together. This particular buyer said, yes, I want my seller to look for innovative ways, but I also want to make sure that seller's on the same page with me. And I want to be sure that you're acknowledging my input. I'm important too. Let's make sure that you showed your confidence in me. And with that, if you're answering all my questions before, during, and after the sales transaction, you've got me. That's how it all rolls up together. What's not there is inspiring a shared vision. It is important, but buyers are deaf to it until they've seen these other behaviors from sellers. And this is why sellers are so frustrated, because they are positioning it at the top. They think it's the most important one. They're doing a great job of this particular set of behaviors, and yet nothing's happening because buyers are waiting for something else first. Well, I'm almost out of time, but I would like to invite you to continue participating in this research, and here's how you can do that. Now through the end of May, tell everybody you know who's in a sales function or anything that looks like a sales function, because we're doing giveaways. We're collecting the seller side stories to see how they line up with the buyer's perception of the behaviors. If you'll go to this website, There's tons of information, more to come. Every week we're adding something new. And this giveaway that we're doing, that expires May 31st. But for all stories collected by then, there's a drawing for a $500 travel voucher and lots more good stuff. Any questions for me before we wrap? Or if you'd rather ask questions of me outside the room, I'm going to go over to the next door lounge. And I do have some books to give away that are the Discover Questions book. They help to answer that question about dialogic versus diagnostic interaction with the buyer, because that's based on 20 years of research with buyers. So any questions whatsoever? Mike's got a microphone. Okay, well then that means I'm going to get a good group of people over next door then. Thank you very much for your time.